All right, guys, I just went ahead and hit the live button. I figure people can hear you talking about your DFS if you're still talking about it when we get live. Why the heck not? They may enjoy that conversation as well. But welcome back, everyone. We were on a bit of a hiatus last week. Kev and I were both under the weather. We did manage to get the Tuesday podcast out, though, Kev, so we can pat ourselves on the back for that one there. And I had no internet last week, right? I think that was the major thing, is I woke up without any internet, and that just kind of blew the whole thing apart. But this week, we're back. I have internet. I'm feeling better. Kev, you sound like you're feeling better. Thanksgiving was freaking awesome. I had a great time at Thanksgiving. Black Friday shopping, except for having to bring – my girlfriend works at like one of the biggest shopping centers in the area, and I had to drive her there for work. God, what a friggin' disaster. It took us an hour, like almost an hour and a half to get there, and it's only 15 minutes away.
No, thank you. No, thank you, any of that.
So that was the only downside to my Black Friday and my Thanksgiving. Everything else went well. The football games were really good. Like, I even think Scott Tolzien looked pretty good to me. His receivers were not helping him. Philip Dorsett probably shouldn't even be wearing a uniform anymore. And then Moncrief and Hilton both with drops, but Hilton went out early, so.
Antonio Brown, 8. Le'Veon Bell did Le'Veon Bell things.
Antonio Brown just tore it up. Jordan Reed tore it up. 2 touchdowns for Jordan Reed.
Kirk Cousins dropping that 400-plus yard day.
Yeah, my brother kept asking too, Dak or Kirk. And by the time I went to him, I was like, I think Kirk. It was too late. The game had already started. I didn't realize because, it's Thanksgiving. You don't know what friggin' time it is. You're talking with people and stuff. And then by the time I got back to him and told him Kirk, it was just too late. The game had already locked in the players. So he went with Dak, and, who did pretty well, but not Kirk well.
Yeah, no, yeah. Dak Prescott was okay. I mean, I think he still scored. I think in 6-point touchdown league, he still had six points. He had that rushing touchdown. So he still had 20-plus points, but I think Kirk Cousins finished like 36, so.
I think in our league, Dak finished with 26 and Kirk had 36. So there's a 10-point difference. Oh, man.
I know in one of my leagues, I'm already off to a good start because I actually started Stafford. I mean, he was okay, 18 points. And then I have Antonio Brown, who scored 27. And then I had Dan Bailey. So worked out.
Stafford was
already up like
50.
I'm already at 53 points.
Nice. Yeah, Dan Bailey, he's a beast, bro. I've been using him in leagues that start kickers all year. He's great. Lions-Vikings, man. It wasn't the shootout that you thought, but it definitely was a close game, right down to the wire.
I thought it was going to right out the gate. They went out and scored a touchdown, and it was like 7-7, 7-3, whatever it was. I thought it was going to be, and then no. This was the slow-paced, low-scoring. But the Lions now are alone in first place, and they really have a 2-game lead on Minnesota because now they've swept Minnesota. So they could, here in a couple weeks, they could virtually wrap this thing up.
Absolutely insane. I didn't think the Lions were doing that well this year. I just haven't really paid that close of attention to them. But I was wrong. Big win for them. Steelers, they trounced the Colts as we expected. But like I just mentioned before, I didn't think Tolzien played that bad. He got no help from his supporting cast at all. And Redskins-Cowboys was a classic. It was an absolute classic. It was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much everything that we were hoping for in that game. So couldn't ask for much a better game on a Thursday. I mean, compared to the other 2 games, was definitely the best game of the short Thanksgiving Day slate.
Yeah, man. So how did Thanksgiving go for you guys? Before we get into more football chatter, I want to hear. The food, was it great? The company, was it great? Obviously, we know the football was great, but how did it go overall for you guys? Any Black Friday shopping, anything like that?
No Black Friday shopping for me. I don't I don't do the Black Friday thing. I'm more of a Cyber Monday type of guy. But Thanksgiving was good, man. It was good to be with the fam. My first, well, not my first, but it was the first time being like truly invested in DFS. I had so many lineups going. I played Kirk Cousins a lot, but didn't have the right combination, so to speak. So I ended up making a little bit of money, but not as much as I would have hoped. But yeah, I mean, that's like a new, like, added Thanksgiving. It's like, it used to be like my least favorite holiday, and now that I enjoy the food more and the football more, it's like one of the best. So it's a good time though.
Yeah, I actually I only played a few lineups because Thursday is so unpredictable. I didn't really know what to expect. I only played 2 or 3 lineups on Thursday, and I had 2 of them with Kirk Cousins. Then I swapped them out because I tried to get too cute because, in short slates, you try to, you have to differentiate yourself somehow because most of the guys are all going to be so heavily owned, like Antonio Brown, Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell were all 70% owned. And so I swapped off Kirk Cousins and went to one was Big Ben, which wasn't terrible. Then I made one with Sam Bradford, which I don't know. After it happened, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, why? Why did I do that to myself? But, yeah. So there was that. But after that, we went over to my parents, and after we left there, me and the girlfriend went to a basically just Target, and I'm like, I didn't understand all the hype. Like most of the like deals they had, like unless you're looking for a TV or something like that. Like, there was nothing great. Like, it was all just, like, random. It was, like, maybe stuff that you just can't sell during the regular year. So we're just going to put this stuff on sale so people will buy it. Because, like, everything else, I'm like, I didn't really see anything great. Like, I wasn't blown away by any, like, oh, my God, that's an amazing deal. So.
I agree. Most of the Black Friday deals are that. I feel like it's just stores trying to get rid of inventory. It's like, this didn't sell. Let's just push it as a Black Friday deal. Let's get it out the door. I went to Target as well. The Target's our favorite store. I mean, my girlfriend and I are at Target pretty much every day. It's the way of the world. I did get some shirts from there, though. Like, I like T-shirts, but I refuse to pay whatever, $10, $15 for a freaking T-shirt. It drives me crazy. So Target has them on sale for like $4 on Black Friday. That's good enough. Good enough. Oh, man. Happy to hear your guys' Thanksgiving was awesome. I hope you guys, too, listening, had an awesome Thanksgiving. If you have any war stories from the week, let us know here in the chat on YouTube, or go ahead over to Twitter at @FF_authority, or use hashtag AskTFA and give us your little Thanksgiving war story. Or maybe if you had a great DFS week too, let us know about that. All right, guys, let's get into some injuries here. It looks like Josh McCown is back to starting for the Browns. I don't know what else we can really say about this Browns situation here. It's hard to depend on any of these guys at this point. Sans maybe Terrell Pryor, who seems to eat no matter what. That guy is always involved. I started Corey Coleman 2 weeks in a row, kind of got burnt by that 2 weeks in a row. I actually put Tevin Coleman in for him this week instead of Corey Coleman. I'm a little nervous about it. I'm seeing like reports here on Twitter that Tevin Coleman is active. Well, he wasn't on the injury report. Were we expecting him not to be active?
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's probably just more because he's been out for a few weeks. So just like confirming that he is back this week, I would think.
I think that's the only thing, too, because I had to question it myself just because he hasn't played since week 7. But, yeah, it looks like he practiced on Wednesday, I believe, and should be ready to go.
Not a great matchup there in Arizona, but Coleman is the guy out of the backfield to get the ball, and Atlanta has showed in the past that they have a very creative staff when it comes to getting their playmakers the ball. I know earlier in the year when they faced Denver, we're like, bench all your Falcons. They all performed well. They had that 3-week stretch for a bit there where it looked like they would all underperform, and they didn't really for the most part. I mean, compared to what they were doing, I guess they did, but compared to other people, they were fine. The running back scenario here is Gillislee, Ryan Matthews, and Alfred Blue are all out. Mark Ingram is expected to play. What do you guys feel about that Mark Ingram situation? Mark Ingram, Tim Hightower, they're splitting the load here. Hightower has been more productive. Is that a situation to avoid for you?
I mean, I don't really like either one of them, to be honest, against the Rams. The Rams do still have I mean, if it wasn't for the Rams defense, I don't know how many wins the Rams would have at all. But so I don't know. Like, if I'm going to play anybody if you're playing the Saints, I would want to, get your exposure through the air, not on the ground. I think they just kind of kill each other, and this isn't really the best matchup. I have Mark Ingram as an RB3, and I think Hightower deserves to be in the same area, if not a little lower than Mark Ingram.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, if you have Hightower, I think, if you don't have any other options, you definitely play him, just in the hopes that, Saints are going to be able to put up a lot of points in this game. So, if he's able to get in the red zone there, maybe, catch a pass from Breeze out of the backfield, that's what you're kind of hoping for. But he really doesn't offer that much upside in this matchup.
No, you're right. That Rams defense has been very, very good. Surprisingly good, actually. And like you said, Kev, who knows if they would even have a single win without them. They only have 4 wins on the season with them, so good chance they would not. What else do we have here? Jeremy Maclin is out. Robert Woods is out. Chris Hogan expected to play. Travis Benjamin expected to play. Torrey Smith is active. And the one we've been waiting for, Sammy Watkins, expected to return. I have him as a dud this week because he's supposed to be limited, and he's coming off of a pretty serious injury, and that Bills offense has been meh. But that being said, putting my own article aside for a second, I think Watkins does have a good chance to score this week.
Well, it's all going to depend on – I think a lot of fantasy owners are going to be hesitant to play him this week because you don't really know what you're going to get. Earlier in the year when he did play at the beginning of the season, they barely used him at all. But I also think that he was also, banged up. But I think he's not a bad play. I think he's probably a low-end wide receiver 3 flex option, something like that. The Jaguars do have a pretty formidable pass defense. Their secondary is pretty solid. So it's not necessarily the best matchup for him. But reports out that I saw this morning was he was expected to play 50 to 60% of the snaps. So, I think you could probably project somewhere probably 5 to 7 targets for him this week. And I think with that, he is a big play waiting to happen. If he is 100% healthy, he could easily take one to the house. So I think he's worth a shot. But not one. But I would be hesitant, depending on what other options you may have.
Yeah, I'm holding off on him this week. I'll probably go with him next week. Is a better matchup next week too, so I will wait for that. Jaguars defense actually not bad against the wide receiver, but they still are the Jaguars defense, so they're susceptible to anything at this point. That's just using stats to prove a point, whether or not the point is valid or not. And in the tight end front, it looks like Julius Thomas will be out in that same game. So if you're a Thomas owner, which he has been pretty awful this year, sans a couple games in the beginning of the season, you're going to have to look for a different option this week. What options do you guys like, actually, from the tight end perspective? It's getting worse, I think, the tight end position rather than better. It's struggle, guys. Weekly struggle. So tight end dependent is the key. I'm looking at guys who are little owned here. So I'm looking at Dwayne Allen. Zach Miller's on IR, so that doesn't count. Virgil Green, but that's against Kansas City. I don't know. But your boy Vance McDonald is only 10% owned. Kev, what do you think of him against Miami this week?
He's been pretty good this year. He's put up decent numbers. He's kind of came on with with Colin Kaepernick as of late. He's getting some targets. It feels like he's getting a little bit more than what he was before. I mean, he scored touchdowns now 2 of the last 3 weeks. Hasn't had less than 46 yards, which was last week was his lowest. So I mean, the last 3 weeks he's put up, week 9, 84 and a touchdown, week 10, 50 yards, and then week 11, 46 yards and a touchdown. He's pretty for being a tight end. He does have some quickness. He can bust off big, explosive plays. So I actually like him. I think he's a sneaky play this week. And if you're hurting at tight end, he's certainly a guy that you could look for.
Yeah, since Kaepernick's come back, he's had less than 6 targets only 1 time. Pretty decent for especially the tight end pool that would be available. Ryan, do you have any tight ends up your sleeve for this week?
No, I think Vance McDonald, or yes, I do, but I think Vance McDonald is a great call there. Kaepernick just loves him. So I like that a lot. Gary Barnidge is another guy I really like this week a lot. I mean, we've seen it with McCown before. His fantasy value just peaks. He has seen six targets per game with McCown at quarterback, and with the rest of those guys, he hasn't even been able to reach that number. And then his touchdown equity is just so much higher with McCown at quarterback, and I expect the Browns have to pass a lot in this game, so he's definitely a great option there. And some people might have dropped him considering that he hasn't been putting up production with these other guys.
Yeah, man, I think I see him as a free agent in a lot of my leagues. Kev, I wanted to go back to you on this. I saw Hunter Henry on your waiver rankings for this week. Hunter Henry only 3% owned in Yahoo leagues. You feeling good about his return?
I mean, I think he's still going to get targets. He loses some value with Antonio Gates, but if you watch Antonio Gates this year, Antonio Gates does not look like Antonio Gates. He's a mold of himself. I mean, he's slow. I feel like I think plenty of offensive linemen could beat him at a 40. He's still, a big body. He could still, post up and do those sorts of things like like we're accustomed to seeing. But I think it's only a matter of time until Hunter Henry takes over that job because I think he is the more explosive playmaker. We've seen it many times this year. And with, Travis Benjamin's dealing with injury, although he's supposed to be back this week, it's really been Tyrell the Gazelle, and that's kind of been it. Now, this isn't really the best matchup going against Houston because Houston's secondary is elite. And a lot of people don't really talk about that with A.J. Boye and some other guys that they have there. So, this isn't really the best matchup for him. But I think moving forward, he's a fine player to own.
Absolutely. If you guys need more waiver help for this week, go ahead and check out Kev's article, Week 12 Waiver Rankings. I will post it in the chat there for you, so you can just go ahead and click it and see what he thinks about the rest of his waiver rankings for the week. Guys, we do have some questions coming in before we get back to kind of the matchups of the week, injury updates of the week. Landry asks, who would you sit? So you have to pick one to sit between Brandon Marshall, Michael Thomas, Kelvin Benjamin, and Thomas Rawls. It is a PPR league. I'll be honest, I'm leaning Marshall myself.
Yeah, I probably would say Marshall. We've seen the Patriots are just great at game planning against opposing offenses. I mean, Belichick's just a mastermind when it comes to defense and taking players out of the game. And my God, I mean, it's Fitzpatrick against these guys. It's like, how can you trust any of the passing options there? So that's the one I would most likely be willing to sit because while Brandon still has a little bit of upside, I think those other guys are just in much better matchups this week.
Yeah. I do like Brandon Marshall this week. I think playing against New England, they're gonna be playing from behind. They're gonna have to throw the ball a ton. Ryan Fitzpatrick is back into the starting lineup. He's gonna see 10 to 12 targets, somewhere in that range anyway. The volume will be there. He is their only option outside of Quincy and Nunwa. It's hard to sit Brandon Marshall because his upside is that of a elite level wide receiver, but they just haven't been able to get it done. And as you mentioned, I expect them probably to roll coverage to Brandon Marshall to limit whatever Brandon Marshall can do. So and there's no way I'm sitting Michael Thomas. I have Michael Thomas in my rankings as a wide receiver 1 this week, so there's no way I'm sitting him. And then as far as Thomas Rawls go, now with CJ Prosise done, Christian Michael gone, I mean he's in the spot to really soak up all the whether it be in the passing game or on the ground. I think he sees 20 to 25 touches today easily, and it's a really great matchup. So there's no way I could sit Thomas Rawls. So it'd have to be reluctantly Brandon Marshall.
All right, Brandon Marshall is the guy to sit. Landry, hopefully that helps you out this week, man. Best of luck on your Week 12 matchup. Alexander, welcome back, buddy. He has a question for us. He's starting DeMarco and Theo in his running back slots. He had Antonio Brown, Evans, Dez, and Mike Thomas at wide receiver and flex. Should he start Doug Martin over either of the flex guys who were Dez Bryant already played and Michael Thomas? So should he start Doug Martin over Michael Thomas?
Absolutely not.
No.
Should he consider starting him? Actually, he can't. DeMarco and Theo already played, so that was really the only question there. So, no, you're going to start Michael Thomas there, Alexander. He also asked Hunter Henry or C.J. Fedorowicz.
Fedorowicz,
yeah.
Fedorowicz. Oh, Evans. He could start Doug Martin over Evans, which you're not doing that either.
No. Even though it's not a great matchup for Mike Evans, but he's still going to see an absurd amount of targets. And I believe Earl Thomas is out this week, so I think that's a bit of a problem for them as well. So, no, there's no way you're sitting Mike Evans, though. Mike Evans has been top 2 wide receiver this year, top 2 or 3. So there's no way you sit him, especially for Doug Martin going against Seattle.
Right. What do you mean, and Landry? Stop adding people to the question, Alexander. He's continuously adding people to the question. I'm not even sure where we stand with his lineup right now. Post a picture or something of your lineup in the chat. If you can, but that might give us a better.
Leave it the way. I would leave it the way that he's got it. I wouldn't change a thing because you can't move Theo. You can't move anybody else. You can't move Dez. So obviously you're starting Antonio. Obviously Antonio Brown's already played. So you're starting Mike Evans. You're starting Michael Thomas. Right. And there's no way I'm starting Doug Martin over any of those guys.
He's saying he also has Jarvis. Yeah. What league are you playing in? Like, are you playing against 5-year-olds at this point? Like, how did you get these receivers?
Well, yeah, and even like Landry too, who's like he was questionable all week. I think he was limited in practice at some points this week. So his health is in question. It's like, why even try and chase there? It's like you have 2 solid options who are going to get you big numbers. You just plug those guys in and don't overthink it.
Right, and the Jarvis Landry Devonte Parker situation is interesting in Miami too because you don't know who's going to be the favorite of the week. We talk about this almost every week with a bunch of quarterbacks, but we saw last week that Tannehill and Parker are started kind of getting on the same track here. He's still going to feed Landry, but it's very clear at this point that Parker is eating into that.
Yeah.
All right. Rax, welcome to the show, man. He says Breeze or Brady.
Man, it's close, but I have Brady number 1 this week, so I have Breeze number 2. So I mean,
that's great. I'm curious as to why you have Brady over Breeze. We've kind of seen these Patriots-Jets games be kind of, huge rivalry games, not too high scoring, and they're on the road. I mean, Fitzpatrick is bad, but that's why I would kind of lean a Breeze, because I don't think that Brady really needs to, do much in this game. I think that they can really have their way with the Jets and really just control the game.
Well, I mean, if I know anything, I mean, I totally understand that, but at the same time, I mean, he's been a monster all year. I mean, he's thrown for at least 2 touchdowns in every game but one this season, and the one game he didn't was against Seattle. I mean, I don't know. Like, it doesn't matter to me that they're playing the Jets, because the Jets' defense is, especially the pass defense, is not that great at all. I do think that the Patriots are going to want to come out and lay a beat down on them. I mean, it is a rivalry game, so I don't – and we know that the Patriots aren't just going to, like, pull up off the reins there if they get up early. So there's no way – I don't see a scenario where you can not have Tom Brady number one with what he's been able to do this season. 4 of his 6 games, he's thrown at least 3 touchdowns. He's been over 300 yards in 4 of the 6 as well. So there's just no way I can sit him. I get it. Drew Brees at home, dude's a beast. Drew Brees averages 360 yards at home on the season. So I totally understand that. Like I said, like, I wouldn't be mad which other way you went. I think they're both excellent plays. Like I said, I have one at 1 and the other at 2. It's just I like Tom Brady. I do think a bit of an edge in terms of overall matchup. As the secondary, I think for the Rams is a bit better than what the Jets have to offer. Darrelle Revis is a shell of himself, and I'm just not afraid of that. And it doesn't really scare me of the rivalry narrative that it's going to be super close. I just don't think it will be, and I think Tom Brady just goes off like he's done all year.
There it is. Yeah, I mean, you're splitting hairs there at that point, right? Between Brady and Breeze this week. I think you're going to be pretty happy either way, but I would also go with Brady against the Jets. He has their number. Even though they play him hard, he always does pretty well. He says Breeze has no defense, so he's always forced to come from behind in a close game. Brady's a little banged up, and I doubt the Jets will compete. Worried we see Brady pulled. When do we ever see Brady pulled? Yeah, I don't think you're going to.
No, never.
I think you're fine going with Brady. There's almost a 0% chance he's going to get pulled unless he gets hurt. Yeah.
And I just see the comment he put in there. Breeze has no defense. That's actually not so accurate. Their defense has actually been played much better, especially as of late. The Saints defense, they've actually improved quite a bit over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I know a lot of we like to have recency bias with things and not just kind of look into things a little deeper. The Saints defense has actually played pretty well, and especially on the ground, they've actually been much better. I don't think they've given up a 100-yard rusher in 3 or 4 weeks. So they have been much better. The Saints defense isn't the same pushover defense that we just expected. You're just going to go out and roll over them. I don't see that happening. And not to mention they're playing the Rams with Jared Goff. So that doesn't scare me one bit. I actually like the Saints as a defense this week as a streamer. I don't think they're a bad play at all. I know that's very weird to say that you'd play the Saints in any fantasy format and that's, as far as their defense, but certainly what I love. I think the Saints defense, it would be a good play this week.
Alrighty. If you guys have any further questions, make sure to throw them in the chat or use hashtag AskTFA on Twitter. Those are the 2 ways to get us your questions today. We're here until kickoff, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time, for about another hour or so of answering questions, talking Week 12, a little Thanksgiving. If you want to talk about Thanksgiving Day football, type it out right in the chat. We will get to.
Can you do that again? How does that go? How does that go again?
Dallas Cowboys are 10-1. I'm sure you Cowboys fans are feeling nice about that. They are very close to a playoff clinch already. Unbelievable. Looking at the lineups, looking at the lineup of games here today. Looking for some big ones. Cardinals, Falcons. What do we think of this one, guys? I could see shootout here. Carson Palmer has not been playing that well, but I think that the Cardinals are going to have to put up points if they're going to stay in this one.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
do. I actually, well, we talked about this game before, right before we came on. We were talking about that. Like, this is sort of going a little underlooked, at least for the overall matchup, the slate today of games. And I actually really like the matchup on both sides of the football. Atlanta, Desmond Trufant is out, and he actually could be out for the year, which could be a massive blow to that defense. With that, I think the Cardinals will be able to kind of do what they want today on the offensive side of the football. And obviously, the Falcons just continue to roll, have one of the best offenses in the league. I know a lot of people are afraid of the Patrick Peterson against Julio Jones, but Patrick Peterson has not been the Patrick Peterson that we saw last year. So I'm not really worried about that one bit. And I think you're going to see there's some other guys there that are in play, and I don't know what you guys think about them, but like a Taylor Gabriel from the Falcons, who has kind of quietly went about his business and has double-digit fantasy points, I think, in 3 straight weeks. He was a guy that I kind of liked as a pickup, a waiver wire ad. And then I think in DFS, he's also worth a play because I think that he's kind of that home run hitter. And like I said, I think this game is going to be high scoring. I think on the Cardinals side of the football, John Brown, I really like him today. Obviously, Larry Fitzgerald, I mean, that dude's a beast every week, and we don't even have to talk about David Johnson. But I think also J.J. Nelson could actually be in play again this week so I pretty much just love the entire slate or this entire game and the fantasy goodness, if you will, that's going to come from it. Austin Hooper also.
Sorry, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say, Kev pretty much hit it on the point. He named off 8, 9, fantasy options from this game. So it's like, why would you not look to target this game? And really, it's kind of, we've gotten to the point where the Cardinals are in like must-win situation every week. So they're definitely, playing for, playoff hopes. And in a game that's supposed to be, totally reliant on, scoring, I think, because Atlanta, we know how they play at home. They're going to put up points. So Palmer, it's going to be on him to kind of keep this team, afloat. So I would be willing to take those options. If you have Fitzgerald, start him. If you have John Brown, start him. We don't need questions about David Johnson. You start the dude against this Atlanta team who can't defend running backs to save their life. But yeah, from a DFS standpoint, I think that you can really, give yourself an edge here if you take a shot on these Cardinals guys.
So you're saying you shouldn't start David Johnson this week?
If you want to lose, right? If you don't start him, don't add us. Don't reply to us on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, I didn't start David Johnson. My week's terrible."
I think he's just pretty much. It's obvious. I know we're doing a little tongue in cheek here, but like last week was probably the one week where you felt like maybe they're not going to do so well. David Johnson, they're going against Minnesota. But he just went out there and just handled his business and just wrecked up what was it, 26, 27 fantasy points. Dude has been an absolute monster this entire season. He is as good as gold every single week. He's just a guy. He's like that free square. You just know you're going to get at least 15 to 20 fantasy points every single week from the dude. So I don't know. Like, that dude is a monster. I'm a big time David Johnson supporter.
You don't say.
Yeah, I've been all since last year. I remember last year on the podcast, we'd always talk about we and Jeff would just get so pissed because Bruce Arians just wouldn't play the guy. Every chance he got, he'd score a touchdown, but I don't know. So it's been great watching David Johnson all year just handle his business.
And myself included. I was holding on to that guy all season long, so I would ask you guys pretty much every podcast, "The time to drop David Johnson yet?" No. No, but now I know Kev holds on to people for an eternity. So,
well, it paid off, did it? Because I'm sure he won plenty of people championships.
Yeah, he won it for me too. Before we get back, we do have a couple more questions. I want to know what your outlook is on Tevin Coleman coming back from the hamstring injury finally. What do you see his role being today?
I don't think it's any different than what it was before. I think they're going to go back to splitting touches again, and really trying to get the run game going again, and kind of using both of them in different roles. I think Tevin Coleman will go back to, will regain the goal line touches and things like that he was getting before. So I think in terms of a season long, I think you're fine to start him up as a low end RB2, RB3 this week, flex option. And then in DFS, I think he's somebody that's going to go completely underlooked because there's so much value on the slate that a lot of people aren't going to be paying attention to Tevin Coleman. But Tevin Coleman does get work out of the pass, as a pass catching back, and I think that's what you're looking for from any running back that you're going to play, whether it be in DFS or obviously PPR leagues, because those there are certain guys this week, like Jeremy Hill, who not to go too far, I guess, to DFS, but he's 3,900 on DraftKings, which is like an absolute steal for a guy who's going to get 20 to 25 touches. However, the matchup is absolutely brutal, playing the best run defense in the league. I mean, we saw what they did last week. They bottled up Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott had one of his poorer performances of the season, and so that's just not a great matchup. But for Tevin Coleman was a RB1 there for plenty of weeks, and I think he goes right back to that. This is a tougher matchup against Arizona, but I do think he'll see some work out of the backfield as a pass catcher too. So I'm okay with him. I feel fine with starting him this week.
I think it's probably his out of the backfield work that's going to keep him a relevant option this week, more so than anything. I am worried about that one guy the Cardinals have, that Jones guy, the safety / linebacker. Dude's a beast, hoping that he's not, just locked on to Coleman the whole game. That will make me cry a little bit. Am I doing the right move starting Tevin Coleman over Corey Coleman? What do you guys think?
I don't know. My opinion is that, with Josh McCown, he's the best quarterback the Browns have. Dude can drop 300 yards, no problem. I think this game against the Giants is going to be high scoring. I think the Browns are going to have to stay, in the game. I think you're going to see plenty of targets for Terrell Pryor and Corey Coleman and Gary Barnidge. I think he's an okay play. If you remember his week 2 performance, that was with Josh McCown under center, where he had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think he's worth a start, but he is very risky. And but for me, I think that the smarter play is probably Tevin Coleman, just because I think it's just a little bit safer of a play than Corey Coleman, because I think a lot of us have been waiting for Corey Coleman to kind of bounce back from the injury and everything else. He just hasn't done it. He's put up some duds.
Right. We spoke a little bit about DFS before. Guys, if you are huge DFS fans, we don't talk a lot of DFS on the show, but you are welcome to ask us questions. You could also check out Ryan's article here, The Contrary 10, where he picks out 10 contrarian plays in DFS each and every week. I will link it here in the chat for you. Go check that out, especially if you're playing DFS this week. I wouldn't play without reading that article. Back to the questions, guys. Alexander says, what's the outlook for Mariota this week versus the Bears? I feel like it could be a low-scoring game, and I don't know how great of a day he's going to have. What do you think?
Oh, man. Start this with going against the Bears. I don't see how you don't. This is a guy who's just been fantasy goodness all throughout the year, and I'm not going to be scared off of him. A matchup versus the Bears on the road. I really do think that this game bodes really well for DeMarco Murray. So that could kind of hinder Mariota's value there. But we've seen how Murray's been used in the passing game. So I think that it's overblown. I think that many people are overlooking Mariota, and I don't know why. Maybe because it's on the road, but he's just putting up so many great numbers. I mean, the dude's been throwing a touchdown every week. Now,
Well, I think – I mean, I'm not trying to cut you off or anything, but I think some people are afraid of Mariota this week because of the matchup. Not because the Bears are so great, but, I mean, they have Matt Barkley under center. The reason that Mariota has been played so well is, one, they've had to, right? Like, they've had to because they've had to stay in games, and he's been a big reason for that, using his arm. I mean, outside of the 1 week against Green Bay where they just torched, they've been kind of playing, catch-up mode the entire time. And so Mariota's been forced to throw the ball. This week, going against the Bears, I mean, there's no chance of that. I think the Titans are one of the best defenses to play this week because Matt Barkley is horrific. And so I don't see that sort of game flow to where Mariota is going to have to really throw the ball a ton. And I think they're going to lean heavily on DeMarco Murray, like, the exotic smash mouth that they bring to the table. And I think they're just going to feed the running backs and really just sort of, I think this is kind of a bye week almost for the Titans, because I'm not afraid of Matt Barkley, and I don't see a whole lot of, I don't really see a way where Chicago can even keep this game close. And so if that's the case, I don't think Mariota's going to have many opportunities to really, be an elite option this week. I think he's okay. I mean, he's not bad. He's still a QB1 this week, but I just don't see, the ridiculous play that he has coming. And I could see an even worse week, not because he plays terribly, just because of game flow. And I just don't think that they're going to need to lean on him and see a way where Chicago's going to score more than, 7 to 14 points this week. I think they're going to be somewhere in that range just because the offense is going to be so horrible. And I will say this, that Chicago defense has played much better at home than they do on the road. But they have on that case, but they also have given up, I think 4 of the last 6 weeks have given up QB1 weeks to quarterbacks. And the 2 weeks they haven't, I think there was against Blake Bortles and Sam Bradford. So that's really all you need to know there with that. But other than that, like I said, I think he's an okay play, but he's not somebody that I just feel like I don't see the ceiling being nearly as high as what it is in other weeks.
He hasn't scored less than 20 fantasy points in leagues that reward 6 points for touchdowns since, what was that, week 4? I see what you're saying, though. Matt Barkley looked awful when he came in, filling in last time. I think it was either Hoyer or Cutler got hurt, and Barkley had to kind of fill in. He did not look good. Hopefully he looks a little better this week for the sake of Bears fans and the sake of Mariota owners who are hoping that he has to at least do something here this week. I could definitely see the concern, though. Rax has a question about defenses. Would you like to go Eagles defense at home versus Green Bay or Seahawks defense at Tampa Bay?
Oh, wow. I can understand why you would consider the Eagles defense at home because that's where they play their best, and they're just great at creating turnovers and scoring on the road there, or scoring at home, excuse me. I gotta play the Seahawks. I mean, the one thing about Jameis Winston is he has this, kind of don't give a fuck attitude, which I think could really cost him here against Seattle, because, we talked about how many times Mike Evans is going to get targeted, which I do believe in. I think he's going to target Mike Evans a lot, but he's going to be up on Richard Sherman majority of the time. Maybe not shadowed, but definitely majority of the time. And it just reeks of, it just reeks bad. It smells bad. Like I'm going to target Jameis a lot on the road against the Seattle defense.
Just
so I think
bad. It stinks horribly.
Yeah, absolutely. With Earl Thomas being out, I think that does affect the defense just a little bit. But it's like outside of Mike Evans, like they really don't have a threat. And we're talking about like you don't want to start Doug Martin, so you don't think the running game is going to be going. I don't. And then it's Adam Humphries and Cameron Brate, like to contain these guys. So I wouldn't try and chase with the Eagles there, who are going against the Packers team, who literally just have been able to put up. Rodgers has been putting up a ton of points. Since he's facing.
You agree, Kev? Seahawks defense instead of the Eagles versus Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. I mean, just matchup alone, I think you have to. Green Bay certainly hasn't played as well as what we expect, but they can still drop plenty of points on your head, whether it be in garbage time, whatever the case may be. I don't see – there's just no way I could play the Eagles over Seattle this week going against Tampa. I do think Cameron Brate is another guy who I would consider as like a tight end one this week, or at least has that sort of upside. He's going to see a healthy amount of targets, and so I wouldn't mind firing up Cameron Brate. But as Ryan said, they don't have a ton of playmakers who are really going to scare you. So I still think, even though this game is on the road for Seattle, I still think you play Seattle's defense going against Tampa. But like I mentioned, it would be interesting to know if there's any other options out there on the waiver wire, because there are some teams that I really do like, that, like I said, that I think are in better situations. Like I mentioned, Tennessee, I think, is an elite option this week. And, Buffalo, obviously, I think is a great option. And even the Saints. I don't know. I wouldn't play the Saints over Seattle if you had that option. But I would play Tennessee over the both.
What do you think about Miami's defense this week? I'm rolling them out in a league. Kaepernick scares me a little bit, but he is turnover prone as well.
What really scares me is this. It's like Ajayi going against San Francisco. We know San Francisco is historically bad against they're so susceptible to the run because of their pace. And, just their offense really hasn't been fantastic. But that pace really lends itself to the defense being on the ground, being on the field far more. And that's why we've seen, even last year with Philadelphia and things like that, where just the defenses don't play that great because they're always on the field. And they just can't seem to, they're not going to be able to get past that. So, but the thing that scares me about Jay Ajayi is they're missing so many of their offensive linemen. That, like we've talked about before, the key to the Miami run game wasn't so much Jay Ajayi as it was for me the Miami offensive line. Miami offensive line healthy, I could make an argument that they're the best offensive line in the league. Better than Dallas, better than Oakland. That offensive line, when healthy, is elite. But right now, that's been the problem the last couple of years. That they just none of those guys can stay healthy. And it's a shame. Like we saw them when they were healthy, 2 or 3 weeks straight. I mean, Jay Ajayi, that's when Jay Ajayi rushed for 200 yards and just went off, was when the offensive line was completely healthy. And so with that, I still think Jay Ajayi is, RB1 this week. But as for Ryan Tannehill, this is probably the second week all season that I've really, endorsed playing him. And I think he's in a spot where you could play him again. I actually think, I think Devonte Parker is an excellent play as well. I really like Devonte Parker this week. And regardless of whatever happens with Jarvis Landry, I think Devonte Parker is finally starting to take that job over and be the number one wide receiver that he has the potential to be. So I think Tannehill's worth a shot, but with no buys this week, it's I would have to, it would really depend on what other options were there. But I still think Tannehill is an option as a, high-end QB too.
The injuries to this offensive line, as a fan of the team, really just kind of get under my skin, man. Like, what are these guys doing that they're getting hurt so often? They're missing 3/5 of the offensive line today with Tunsil, Albert, and Pouncey all out. Pouncey, that dude's the most injury-prone dude in the history of the freaking NFL, I think. Brandon Albert, we know what comes with him. Really kind of annoying to see Laramie Tunsil, the rookie, on the inactive list so much this year, especially since I felt like we stole him when he dropped in the draft. But it is what it is, guys. Injuries happen. So I think you make a great point there about Ajayi, though. May have a tougher time than people think behind that offensive line. We don't have the best depth there. Alexander says, on that note, would you take the Miami D or the Bills D? I would probably go Buffalo.
For sure, 100%. I think the Bills defense is one. I mean, that's kind of the game plan, right? I mean, you just basically attack. You just want to go with the defense that's playing Jacksonville every single week. So I love the Bills. I have them at number 3 overall this week in my my rankings. Actually, my defensive rankings you can find on the at fantasyauthority.com. I have the Giants at 1, Chiefs at 2, which is probably a little bit of a hot take, but the Bills at 3, Dolphins at 4, Patriots at 5, so and then Titans at 6. So that's kind of that's where I stand on my defense. So I think some of those are pretty readily available too, if you can grab one of those, because I think all of them are fine plays this week.
All right. Let's get into some more of this action, guys. As always, guys, if you have more questions, hashtag AskTFA at FF_authority or right here in the YouTube chat. Also, if you are enjoying the show, make sure you hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. That'll help us rank better in the YouTube search, so we really appreciate that. Let's go ahead back to the list of matchups here. We talked Browns a little bit. We talked Falcons Cardinals, which was great. How about Tyler Boyd in this Cincinnati at Baltimore game? Tyler Boyd getting the start with AJ Green hurt. What do you think for him this week? What do you think of this game in general?
Well, I think on the Cincinnati side of the football, I know a lot of people are going to be leaning towards Tyler Boyd. I actually think Brandon LaFell is probably the better play and the better option, at least long term. Tyler Boyd's probably going to be running things from the slot still. Brandon LaFell is still the number 1 wide receiver in that offense. Or I should say still is going to be the number 1 wide receiver and fill in the AJ Green role. So I think Brandon LaFell is a better play than Tyler Boyd. And I mean, like we mentioned with Jeremy Hill stepped into a terrific spot with Giovanni Bernard out for the season. However, this week it's just terrible matchup. The Ravens are the best run defense in the league. They've been able to, stop everything. But then, just when you start to think you know something, I mean, I don't know why, but I've had this feeling all week about Jeremy Hill that he could just be one of those performances where you just didn't see it coming, and he kind of goes off. He's going to see the goal line work, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something like 60 or 70 yards and a couple touchdowns. So. As far as the Ravens go, the Cincinnati's very tough, or very weak in the secondary. However, I mean, I don't think you ever feel great about Joe Flacco or any of their options. I know you guys like Mike Wallace. I'm still just kind of like, I think he's just kind of a guy. I've never been really all that excited about him. He certainly have had good weeks this year, but I think Steve Smith is probably the best play on the board, not named Tyler Eifert. And I know a lot of people are afraid of Tyler Eifert, it seems, and I don't understand why. At least some of the chat that I've seen around like fantasy Twitter, the guy should see a exuberant amount of targets, and I think he's one of the top plays on the board at Tyler.
It's because of these damn color-coded matchup things. That's why people think Tyler Eifert is a bad play this week, because they look at their Yahoo lineup and it says Tyler Eifert versus Cincinnati, and Cincinnati versus Baltimore, and the Baltimore is red, right? Because Baltimore is good against the tight end. But listen, those rankings against the tight end are so skewed because how many good tight ends do these teams play? I have Tyler Eifert as a stud this week. I think he's going to absolutely blow it up with AJ Green not there. He's going to be Dalton's favorite target. He probably is going to see multiple scores, and he's probably going to win you your week. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think Kev hit it on the head with the Cincinnati game plan. I think it's going to be a lot of LaFell, and that's really scary to even say. But the dude, he's honestly been really good in the red zone. I think he leads the team in red zone targets. And he was really somebody that Dalton leaned on heavily when Eifert was out. So he's in a good spot. But honestly, like if Jimmy Smith, I'm not really sure what's going on with him. I think he's questionable. He might be ruled out. I'm not sure. But if he's out, like that affects the Ravens defense 100%, because Sharice Wright is terrible. Like this guy cannot defend anybody worth a damn. So, you know, that kind of makes me like both LaFell and Boyd that much more, as they're going to be able to exploit him. And then, yeah, from the Ravens standpoint, I just love Steve Smith. I mean, we see it every week with this dude. Like, he is just unbelievable what he's been able to do at his age. And he just is playing with such a chip on his shoulder. He feels like he's not getting the respect he deserves. So definitely in a game that I think is going to be pretty physical, the Bengals and Ravens games usually are. Probably will lean on Smith here a little bit more than Wallace.
Jimmy Smith is active this week, by the way.
He is active or inactive?
Inactive. Sorry.
Got it.
Yeah. He is out. No good. No bueno. He's not playing.
Yeah. I really liked the Ravens defense until I saw that he was missing practice this week and I guess now out. So
now, not so much. Not
so much.
We have a fantastic game, it looks like, for Sunday night with Chiefs at Broncos. Fantastic both from a regular football standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint, I would think. You got Spencer Ware there in Kansas City. You got Tyreek Hill with Jeremy Maclin out. He becomes a solid option there. And then on the flip side, you got, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. What do you guys think of this Chiefs-Broncos game? I know bringing it up is going to likely turn Kevin into a half-hour tangent about this one, but that's okay. You're a fan. That's what you should do. So we'll start with Ryan so he can get a word in edgewise, and then we'll flip on over to Kevin and see what he thinks of this matchup. Huge division matchup, huge rivalry game. What do you think of this one, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, outside of it, just not even from a fantasy standpoint, I think that this is just a phenomenal matchup just for people who like football. I mean, you got two teams here who are competing for the top of the division. And, despite what you think about the Chiefs, like, good, their defense is getting healthy now. And Alex Smith is, the quintessential game manager. He's just able to, get it, whatever the team needs from him, he's able to do. Who's really interesting in this game to me is Spencer Ware, who the Chiefs, are leaning on run. And we've seen, Latavius Murray go off against the Broncos. We've seen other running backs, kind of have been games against them. So, I'd be interested he's really interesting to me to play from a daily standpoint because I don't think anybody's going to be on him. And definitely in those primetime matchups, it's going to be late. But on the other side of the ball, I really like Demaryius Thomas. I think that, he should definitely get a ton of looks here, probably going against Phillip Games, I would assume. So I think he should be good. And then Travis Kelce, the Broncos are really I don't know what it's been, but I feel like in the past 2 years, they've been really susceptible to tight end play. So Travis Kelce is another guy there too, who should get some looks with Maclin out. And I think people, if you're thinking of like the Kansas City Chiefs, you're looking at Tyreek Hill, who's been on fantasy airwaves here for a couple weeks now. But I think Travis Kelce can get back into the swing of things here in this game.
Well,
just waiting.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the response.
Well, I mean, I think this game. So, of course, as I sit here in my, Justin Houston authentic jersey, on my Chiefs hat, I try to be really non-biased when it comes to fantasy football because I don't think that's the right way to do it. And you're going to, end up getting things wrong more than you're right because of it. And so I think from a fantasy perspective that everything that you just said, I completely agree with, Ryan. I actually favor, though, the Chiefs defense over the Broncos, which seems crazy, but I do think the Chiefs defense is getting more and more healthy. They're getting all their pieces back. Justin Houston was a huge addition, although he wasn't really a playmaker involved in the defense last week. However, the Broncos offensive line has struggled. Trevor Siemian has been just kind of a guy that's out there. He doesn't somebody that scares me. I think as long as D Ford plays with Justin Houston, I think that defense is going to be a very big problem for their offense. Their running game really hasn't been special. So I do expect this to be a low-scoring defensive struggle. So I don't think it offers a ton of fantasy goodness. I think the plays, as you mentioned, Spencer Ware, I think is a fantastic play. The Broncos defense really has struggled to stop any running back all season. If you're going to beat them, it's up the middle. The Jeremy Maclin thing, Jeremy Maclin hasn't played in a few weeks. I don't think that's really a big issue for them. So for me, I think it's going to come down to, ball control. I think Spencer Ware is a fantastic player. I do like Demaryius Thomas, who he'll likely be matched up with some, because Marcus Peters doesn't flip. Marcus Peters is back. Marcus Peters, though, does not shadow at all. He plays 92% on one side, and then the other side is Phillip Gaines. Phillip Gaines has really struggled to stop anybody. Plenty of big games have come on his side of the football. So I think Demaryius Thomas is a fine play. But these are two teams that are very familiar with each other, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. These games have been fantastic, and I don't expect this game to be any different. I think both teams are really going to be, because this game is going to be massive in terms of standings, because with Oakland being a game ahead, and if Oakland loses today to Carolina, which we haven't really talked about, but I certainly think could be a possibility, the next game could be for first place, because if the Chiefs win, then they go right back into first place. So, like I said, it's just not a great matchup for either. I think both defenses are certainly worth a start, and then Spencer Ware and Demaryius Thomas are probably the two. Emmanuel Sanders isn't a bad play, but outside of that, Tyreek Hill, if you're really desperate, as a flex option, but that's probably the list.
I'm sure plenty of Devonte Booker owners are wondering what the heck to do with him, averaging just 2.7 yards per carry over his last 3 games, and those games included defenses that aren't great against the run. San Diego, Oakland, New Orleans. He couldn't get it done against any of the 3, although it did much better against New Orleans than the other 2. What do you do with Booker? I'm not sure you can drop him, but he's definitely not a must start at this point, right?
Yeah, no, he's definitely not a must start at all. I don't think. I don't know. They're just not using him as much, I feel like. And against this KC defense, he saw 24 touches last week against New Orleans, but like before that, he was only seeing 10, 19, 17. So, I would hope that they would give him the ball about, 23 times. But right now, I don't think he's consistently seeing that enough. So I guess if you had him, I would definitely start him, but I would try and find some other options outside of him.
Yeah, I imagine there's got to be better options at this point. Definitely not an every week starter. Hoping he would be, though. He filled in for Anderson, was looking a lot better, and then just kind of died down quite a bit. Capri Bibbs is in there getting some sort of carries, but the running game for Denver just hasn't been all that fantastic lately. Kev, not sure if you want to add in on that before I go ahead and move along. Just talking Devonte Booker, pretty much said.
Well, I think he's an okay play. I think he's still like an RB2. I think he's still in that range. The Chiefs have struggled, at least over the last 4 weeks, to really stop running backs. They've allowed the 5th most rushing yards a game at 130 a clip. So they certainly can be had there. I think I will say this. The Chiefs, I don't think they're going to be afraid of Trevor Siemian one bit. I think they are going to be very aggressive. and bring plenty of pressure, which is probably not going to bode well for that run game because I don't think they're going to be afraid. I think they're going to allow their corners to play one-on-one, and they are going to bring the house more often than not, which is exactly what Bob Sutton does. Over the last 4 weeks, I think the Chiefs are second in sacks with 11 sacks, or third in sacks. Sorry, and tied with a bunch of teams. So I think, like I said, I think this is going to be a defensive battle. But I think Devonte Booker is at least. I think he's at least an RB2 this week.
Fair enough. Kansas City struggled a bit, so if you need him, may not be a bad week to get him in there, see what he can do. He did get 24 carries last week, so if they do that again, he could be a decent play regardless of how good his per carry base is. TN, welcome back to the show, man. He has 2 questions for us, guys. The first one is a defensive question and includes 2 teams playing each other. San Diego at Houston versus Houston. Sorry, would you start San Diego or Houston's defense?
Oh, San Diego's for sure. It's like, do you want to pick on Osweiler or do you want to pick on Rivers? What was it, 4 interceptions against the Dolphins or whatever recently, but Osweiler's been consistently bad, and we know regardless the Chargers are going to put up points. So I would definitely like to target the Houston side of the ball in that regard.
F? You're thinking, you're pondering, you're like, I hate defenses. Why am I answering this?
I don't love it. I don't love either of them. I think they're both not the great plays. I think they're both bottom of the barrel kind of defenses this week. I don't really care for either one of them. I think it's a bad matchup for Houston playing San Diego. But if I was going to have to choose one, I'd probably lean towards Houston. I think their secondary, like I've mentioned, is elite, and I think that's going to cause problems for San Diego. And so San Diego on the road, I'd probably go Houston. But like I said, I don't really feel great about either one of them.
This doesn't have shootout potential, does it? I mean, can Osweiler even compete in a shootout?
No.
That would be a negative.
All right. He also has a standard league question about the tight end, Delaney Walker or Zach Ertz. He says talent-wise, Delaney is better, obviously, but Zach has the better matchup.
I'd still roll with Delaney Walker.
Yeah. Well.
Has Ertz been relevant again?
He's been decent. He's been seeing a uptick in targets, I feel like, over the past couple of games. He's had those last 3 games, he's had 8 catches, 6 catches, and 6 catches, and 1 touchdown in those 3 games. I think Delaney's definitely the safer play, but it's like, Kev, you just put me on that diatribe about how Mariota week. And so if Mariota is not going to be, having the ball in his hands and they're not going to be passing a lot, I'd rather have exposure to the guy in Zach Ertz, who a ton of shootout potential. And we're seeing now that the Eagles' backfield is decimated. Ryan Matthews isn't going to play, and Allwood's going to be the lead back for Monday. Like, they can't get the running back situation together there. So I think this actually holds really well for Carson Wentz, and I would like to, get exposure to a guy in Zach Ertz, who I think, he's definitely leaning on heavily. We're talking about 8, 6, and 6. That's 20 catches in the past 3 games. Like, that's awesome. Delaney might not need to be used a lot. I'd rather go Ertz, I think.
Yeah, I think the safe play is Lanny Walker, but I think the player with the most upside is probably Zach Ertz for all the reasons you just listed.
All right, so TN, if you want upside, go with Ertz. If you want safe play, go with Walker. That seems to be the conclusion that we've come to at this point, with Delaney obviously being the more consistent play, but Ertz has definitely picked up on the production as of late. Machine, welcome back. He has a running back question, fellas. Doug Martin or Devonte Booker?
Booker.
Yeah, Booker.
It surprises me a little bit. I know Doug's going against Seattle, but he's a much better talent than Booker in my eyes. I myself would say Doug, but it seems like the quote unquote experts here are going with Booker. So
no, he definitely is more talented, but it's like to see it from him first, Like I honestly, like I just think I need to see it from Martin. I think we've all been waiting. Like it's kind of like we're waiting that big game coming, but it's like I'm not gonna start him this week against the Seattle defense. If he's able to do it against them, that's great going forward. But I'd rather see him, prove to me that he's going to be productive than try and start him on a week where he's facing a stout D.
Well, but has Devontae Parker proved that he can be productive outside of 1 week? I mean, Seattle's defense, my thought process is Seattle's defense hasn't been that unstoppable or, that force to be reckoned with that you can't run against. I mean, they've allowed 3 100-yard rushers already, double-digit fantasy points all across the board. Almost every week here, sans last week against Philadelphia, Wendell Smallwood came close to that mark. I don't know. Seattle's defense is good against the run. Kansas City's defense is not great against the run. And maybe Martin and Booker are closer in talent than I think. But I would stick with the muscle hamster who doesn't even want that nickname anymore. But I like it, so I'm going to keep calling him it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. How you think the game's going to go. And in my opinion, I think that the Bucs are going to be forced to have to throw being down in this game. I think that the Seahawks are just going to put the hammer on them quick and early. And, if they're playing from, behind, I don't see how Martin gets that much usage in this game. Allow Jameis to throw the ball. But if it somehow stays close, then I guess he would be interesting. But it's like I know that Denver knows Simeon 40 times against anybody. So he has to get the touches, I think. He hasn't been getting them recently, but you're going to have to ground and pound against this Kansas City game, and he's playing at home. I like that.
Fair enough. All right, Machine. They say Booker, I say Martin, but it's 2 versus 1. He has another question, guys. Jarvis Landry or Larry Fitzgerald?
Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald.
It's not even in the same stratosphere as being close.
Careful.
Yeah, no way.
Not right there. My boy, Blue.
I'm not playing Landry this week. Like, I'd place Kenny Stills over Landry, to be honest. That's where we've gotten.
That's disgusting. Stop talking, Ryan. Stop talking.
You're
a shun.
You're a Dolphins believer. Like Kenny Stills, that dude just gets in the end zone.
Yeah, despite
that guy.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, it's Larry Fitzgerald. And like I said, I really like Carson Palmer. I know a lot of people are off Carson Palmer and probably have dropped him in season long or in DFS, aren't even thinking about playing him. I like Carson Palmer a lot this week in this matchup especially with no Desmond Trufant. Larry Fitzgerald has been as good as gold. PPR leagues, he's averaged 18 fantasy points per game. So there's no way I'm playing Jarvis Landry, who really just hasn't been all that great this entire year. I think last week he was saved. Last week he was saved by that touchdown late in the game. So I don't want any part of Jarvis Landry, especially if you're talking about going up against Larry Fitzgerald.
For sure. Fitzgerald's the play. Still hoping Landry will wake up. I think people have the right to kind of be weary of Carson Palmer. He's been pretty awful this year, but, he does have the matchup, and he's getting the ball to Fitz, so it doesn't matter how bad he's been. Fitz is getting the ball. We're at 7 thumbs ups, guys. Let's get that thumbs up mark to 10. Set ourselves a small goal here. Let's get them up to 10. We have about 13 minutes left in the show. So if you haven't liked the show yet, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. We really appreciate it. It helps us out in the YouTube rankings. Kevin and Ryan, if you have not hit the thumbs up button yet, I don't even know why you're on the show at this point. I'm going to have to make some changes. But let's get into the next topic, which Kevin mentioned Oakland, Carolina. So I'm assuming you want to talk about Oakland, Carolina. Carolina is going into Oakland, where Oakland hasn't really played great at home this year, but they are a hot team right now. That division is absolutely brutal. Toughest division in football by far, I think, at this point. What are we thinking about Oakland versus Carolina? I'm hoping Michael Crabtree can kind of bounce back here. He's had 2 back-to-back struggling weeks.
I think this is another game for really potential high-scoring matchup. I think you love David Carr, and I think Amari Cooper is probably the top play among the offense, at least among the wide receivers. But obviously, Michael Crabtree is very much in play as a solid wide receiver 2. And even in deeper formats, I think Seth Roberts has kind of proven in certain scenarios to be a solid play. Hasn't really been great the last couple of weeks, but regardless, I think those 3 you could really hang your hat on this week and feel great about that you're going to get solid production. And then on the opposite side of the football, I feel like, at least from a DFS standpoint, people are kind of sleeping on Cam Newton, and they just think that's a terrible idea. The Raiders defense has played better as of late, although they haven't really played that elite level offense. And I think with Cam Newton, I think you can be afraid that every time you play him that he can go out and really blow up. So I like Cam Newton this week. I really, really like Kelvin Benjamin as well. I think he is borderline wide receiver 1. And then obviously Greg Olsen, as we talk about all the time, that the Raiders just always struggle to stop tight ends. And Greg Olsen is, a top 2 or 3 tight end in the league. So I think you feel great about all those. As far as the more of, the flex option, I think that Devin Funchess is in play. And obviously I think you feel great about Jonathan Stewart as well. The one area that I would be nervous about would be playing Latavius Murray or any Raiders running back going up against, because I think where the Panthers really, hang their hat, if you will, is stopping, opposing running backs. So I wouldn't feel great about that. But I do think the Raiders will be fine. The Panthers will be without Mario Addison, which is one of their top pass rushers. I think on the year he has 7 sacks, so he's not playing today, so that's going to be a problem. But, however, like I said, I think this is another really great matchup for fantasy.
I have a question for you. Latavius Murray, I do have going in a league. I kind of like Murray because he always somehow manages to fall into the end zone. But I also have some other guys. So I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to be the listener for a second. Would you start Latavius Murray, John Brown, or Duke Johnson? It's PPR, by the way.
Duke Johnson. So you can cross him out for sure. Then it comes down to Brown or Murray.
I'm not confident in Brown at all, I'll be honest there.
Yeah, I think between the two, I'd lean more Murray. I think his role's more apparent. It's little bit of a safer play, but I don't mind John Brown. I think I'd like him a lot more if they had ruled Michael Floyd out, but since he's playing, it's a little bit tougher to kind of determine where those targets are going to go. Murray and just as equally good of a fantasy game.
Right. Kevin's deep in thought.
I would probably go Latavius Murray. I do like I said, I really do like John Brown. I really a lot this week, but
very boomer.
Yes, and I think Latavius Murray has a safer floor, so I would probably go Murray.
All right, cool. We do have another question coming in from TN. Standard League: Jarvis Landry, Kenny Britt, or Devonte Adams? Jarvis Landry, Kenny Britt, Devonte Adams in a standard league. This is a little easier of a question in PPR, I feel like, but
I would go Jarvis Landry in this scenario.
Against San Fran, great matchup, probably the best of the three. Do you agree, Ryan? I think Ryan fell asleep.
No, I'm here.
All right.
Well, repeat the question one more time. I'm sorry.
Jarvis Landry, Kenny Britt, Devonte Adams, standard league.
Oh, Adams, for sure.
One for Adams, one for Landry. I would probably lean Landry as well against San Francisco, although I see the hesitation there. Adams has been fantastic lately, but I don't know how good he's been in standard. I don't have any standard leagues, so it's hard for me to say.
Well, that's the thing is like, I mean, if it was PPR, I might lean Landry, but like, when's the last time Landry's like? I mean, at least with Devonte Adams, like, they have no running game there to speak of, and he gets red zone targets out the ass. So it's like I love taking Packers pass catchers.
All right, one for Landry, one for Adams. So at least you can rule out Kenny Britt on that. He comes back with another question. Half point PPR, Eifert or Barnidge? I think it's Eifert all the way. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like Eifert.
Yeah.
Eifert all the way. So we have 5 minutes left of the show. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to let these two talk about DFS because I love it so much. Give me your guys' top DFS plays of the week. Kev, we'll start with you. You mentioned Cam Newton. You mentioned Kelvin Benjamin. You mentioned a few others here on the show so far. Who is your – I mean, maybe even if it's not your top play, who's a go-to guy that you have in a lot of lineups this week?
I have a ton of exposure to Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks on the road to home has massive splits. I think as we already saw this year at home, the guy just eats. He's already had, a 97-yard touchdown at home. I know a lot of people are going to be targeting that game with Drew Brees, and I think a lot of people are going to be going towards Michael Thomas, which I love Michael Thomas as well, but I think you might actually be able to get Brandon Cooks a little lower owned than Michael Thomas. And I just think Brandon Cooks, like I mentioned at home, is much better. I have Brandon Cooks littered throughout plenty of my lineups this week.
All right, Brandon Cooks for New Orleans with a nice matchup against the Rams. Ryan? You have a lot of somebody. Who is it?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of shares of Breeze just because, like, I just don't like the quarterback position this week at all. And I think, paying up for Breeze, I think is probably going to be a little bit popular, but he's like one of the guys that I definitely think you can pencil in for 3 touchdowns. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility there. And then another guy I really like is Melvin Gordon, who just, continues to get disrespected in the league. And it's crazy. The dude's averaging 26 touches a game since week 1. So basically he sees the ball like 25 times since there's no Danny Woodhead. He gets all the red zone usage. They just trust in this guy so much, and he's such. He is 7,000, but like when you're comparing him to David Johnson, who's almost $9,000, who Melvin Gordon can offer just as much upside as Johnson can. I don't see how you don't, pivot off of that real quick and then just try and maybe get the pass catchers in that Arizona-Atlanta game. And then a tight end, Gary Barnidge at 3,600 with McCown back. We talked about him earlier from a season-long standpoint. Barnidge is just so good, so reliable with McCown back there at quarterback. I think that Gary Barnidge is definitely in probably for a touchdown. And, if he gets you like 5-6 catches, 80 yards, I think he could just be the crazy, play for you in DFS this week.
All right. That's it, guys. 1:00 Eastern time. Football is here. Football is starting. Make sure each and every week you head on over to thefantasyauthority.com. Kevin does a waiver rankings. He actually does standard rankings as well for all positions. Ryan there's got his TFA Contrary 10, which is his 10 contrarian plays for DFS each and every week. Check those out. I do a Studs and Duds article. Comes out every single Thursday. And, of course, we have the Fantasy Authority podcast, which we record live here on YouTube on Tuesday nights, and we launch it Thursday mornings. We have a guest this week, special guest Neil from Clock Dodgers. He does a fantastic podcast. You can reach out to him on Twitter at Clock Dodgers. We will have him on the show this week. Really excited for that. I know he's pretty excited to be on the show too, so looking forward to that. Thank you all so much for your questions again this week. Best of luck to you in your fantasy matchups. Best of luck to your NFL teams in their matchups as well. Go Fins. Hopefully we get this one against the 49ers. It's a should-win game, so hopefully we can pull that off. Best of luck to you guys too. It was fun chatting again today. And, good luck to the Chiefs and good luck. Steelers already won, so good luck to the Bears, I guess, because you're one of those weird double fans over there.
Steelers, Bears, baby.
But that'll do it for the Fantasy Authority Game Day show. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody.